I want to tell you something that I've never said out loud on this channel. In 2021, the person teaching you to stay on top of your numbers completely lost control of her own. Here's the full story. If you were a small business owner in 2020 and 2021, you already know what I'm going to describe. COVID didn't just slow things down. For a lot of us, it changed everything overnight. And spending the next year trying to recover while the world still was figuring itself out, that was its own kind of exhausting. For me, one of the hardest parts of 2021 was staffing. I couldn't find skilled people who wanted to work part time. And rather than watch my business fall apart, I made a decision. I covered the afternoon shift myself for months. By the time the day was done, I had nothing left for anything that wasn't absolutely essential. So I did what a lot of business owners do in survival mode. I found shortcuts, ways to keep moving without stopping to do the deeper work, quick checks instead of full reviews, enough information to get through the day without the complete picture. And here's the thing about shortcuts. They work for a while, but what I didn't realize is that every week I relied on shortcuts instead of my real systems. I was making a trade, a little bit of clarity today in exchange for a bigger problem tomorrow. I wasn't disorganized. I had solid systems. I knew how to do this. But here's what I missed. Even solid systems break down when nobody tends them. And I had stopped tending mine. The stress started quietly, a low level dread that lived in the back of my mind. I knew I was behind. I knew I needed to deal with it. And every week that went by without dealing with it, well, the pile got a little bigger and the thought of starting got a little heavier. That's how procrastination works. It doesn't feel like a crisis at first, it feels like a reasonable delay. And then another, and then another, until one day you realize the delay has been going on for 6 months. By that point, I was missing customer billings, money I had earned and simply never collected. I was paying my own bills late because I wasn't looking at what was due and when. And the stress and the dread that had started as a quiet hum in the background, they became heavy weights I was carrying around every single day. You see, I had good reasons for getting behind. COVID recovery and staffing crisis, those are legitimate excuses. But having good reasons didn't get me off the hook for having to catch up. The books didn't care why I was behind. They just needed to be done. And the longer I waited, the heavier it got. And the heavier it got, the harder it was to start. What finally forced my hand wasn't a moment of inspiration or a decision I made because I was ready. It was Uncle Sam. My tax pro needed my records, and the IRS, as I have learned, is very unforgiving after the first extension. There was no more putting it off. I had a hard deadline and months of catching up to do. Then I did something I normally don't do. I asked for help. I reached out to Kayla. She had previously worked at the front desk, so she already understood my business. She had a similar work style to mine, which meant that she could pick up my systems quickly without me having to explain everything from scratch. And that mattered more than I can tell you. Here's how we divided the work. Kayla kept the business moving forward. She handled what needed to happen today. And I stopped everything and went back to record everything that had already happened. Months of transactions, statements, and receipts, one by one. It wasn't fast and it wasn't fun, but it got done. And Kayla was the key difference in my survival story. The right person at the right moment who already spoke the language of my business. The relief when it was over was something I felt in my whole body. I had spent 6 months carrying something heavy without fully realizing how heavy it had gotten. And when it was done, when my records were current and my tax pro had what he needed, it felt like putting down weight I had gotten so used to carrying that I had forgotten it wasn't supposed to be there. I smiled more. I could look around again. I could see opportunities. I could make decisions based on real numbers instead of best guesses and shortcuts. I stopped the workarounds that had kept me going and I went back to truly knowing where I stood every single day. But here's something I didn't expect. When my vendors started sending me invoices that were incorrect or late, I didn't get frustrated. I understood. I knew exactly what it felt like to be on the other side of that, to be so deep in survival mode that the administrative details just start slipping through the cracks. Getting behind didn't just teach me about my own business, it made me a more patient and compassionate person. By procrastinating working on my business finances, I bought myself time, but I paid for that time with my mental and physical health and with opportunities I'll never know I missed. I'm sharing this story because I know I'm not the only one who's been here. Maybe your reason is different from mine. Maybe it's not a staffing crisis or a pandemic. Maybe it's just the everyday overwhelm of running a business while also trying to live your life. Maybe it's been a few months. Maybe it's been longer. Getting behind can happen to anyone. It's not a death sentence. But I also know this: the longer you carry it, the heavier it gets. And at some point, the cost of not dealing with it becomes higher than the cost of facing it. This is exactly why I do what I do, because I know what it feels like to not have control of your own money. And I know what it feels like when you finally get it back. If you're carrying that weight around right now, you don't need to wait for a tax deadline to force your hand. You don't need to find your own Kayla just yet. You just need to see where you actually stand. And that's why I built the 60-minute business snapshot. It gives you a clear picture of what your business actually brought in and spent, 1 month at a time. No accounting knowledge needed, no complicated setup, just clarity. That first clear picture is where the relief starts. Would you like to learn more about it? Well, then head over to the link in the description. It's at keepingmydollars.com/ business snapshot. If this video was helpful to you, hit subscribe. I'm here every Monday with practical, no jargon help for your business finances. In the meantime, be sure to shield your profits, and I'll see you next week.